Hello everybody. Today's topic is what's new in 2020. It's Audiology 2020, not COVID-19. My name is Srikanta Misra. I'm a professor of audiology at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, USA. And I'll cover a few topics today, starting from auditory training through hidden hearing loss. So let's look at the overview of the topics for today. This webinar is supported by the Andhra Pradesh Speech Language Hearing Association, Telangana Audiologist and Speech Language Pathologist Association, Sravya Speech and Hearing and Cochlear Implant Center, and Siva Prasad Bodapalli, my friend, who is a star audiologist, works at Hyderabad. My background, just to talk very little about my background, I did my undergraduate from Calcutta and my master's from Mysore. Incidentally, I am the first batch of Master of Audiology in India. Then I moved to United Kingdom. I completed my PhD at the University of Southampton, after which I moved to USA, Los Angeles to complete my postdoctoral fellowship at the House Ear Institute. That's in a nutshell. Very briefly, I not only have experience from 3 different countries, India, UK and USA, I actually have experience from 3 different continents, which is Asia, Europe and the Americas. With that, let's talk about the goals for today. The goal is to provide recent updates on audiology research that has direct and significant implications for clinical practice. In other words, you will learn translational research that can be applied in the clinic. There are several research that goes on, and we are not interested with that. What we're interested in, the research that can be easily translated to the clinic. And we'll also learn about the barriers that prevent from such translation or such applications. The target audience for this webinar is students to practicing clinicians. This is not a research topic. And the source for many of these topics are from the 20 questions with Gus Muller with the Hearing Journal. Once again, we're going to provide updates from the last decade and how is it important for practicing clinicians. That's the goal for today. So let the fun begins. My goal is that after 20 minutes, it should be highly refreshed. Some of the topics that we'll cover is evidence-based practice, teleaudiology, computerized auditory training, dementia and hearing loss, hidden hearing loss, digit triplets, a relevant speech and knowledge test, some of the app-based tests, and last but not the least, extended high frequency. To start with evidence-based practice. Why do you care about this or any other webinar? That's primarily because of evidence-based practice. Let's look at what it is. Evidence-based practice, if you look at this diagram, is the best research evidence with your clinical expertise or the expertise from the clinician and what the patient wants. The intersection of these 3 areas is called EBP, or evidence-based practice. EBP is the integration of best research evidence with clinical expertise and patient values. EBP is not about conducting research. It's not about doing research. It's about using research in the clinic. What are the latest research findings that can be used in the clinic? I personally believe that those who use evidence-based practice are ahead of the game. I would like to cite this example. Is in the 1990s, when audiologists changed the standard care from hearing aids to cochlear implants for appropriate patients, those audiologists were considered as the leaders in the profession in this particular case, in this particular example. So it is important that you apply relevant research in your practice to lead it. It has several benefits. And there are several types of evidence. I'm not going to the details of it, but just look at this pyramid. The lowest level is the expert opinion or editorials. The highest is the systematic reviews. And I'm talking about these are experimental evidence. There's another kind of evidence which is anecdotal, which is basically personal clinical experience. You might have experience treating a client. We are not interested with that, or that is not the evidence that really matters much. It does matters much. So these are the different types of evidence. So personal clinical experience unfortunately has the lowest level In contrast, experimental or empirical based research has highest level of evidence, and this is just an example. And how do you incorporate EBP in your practice? How do you know? There are several, hundreds of research papers coming pretty much every month. No clinicians has time to go over all those procedures and learn about it and apply in the clinic. So that's one of the easiest way to apply or attend webinars, for example, and learn what is relevant for you and apply in your clinic if possible. So that's the goal of this particular one. So this is first topic was evidence-based practice, or in other words, why do you care about any webinar or any research? It's primarily to see whether you can apply. If you cannot apply, what are the barriers that is preventing you from the application, and if you're able to apply, I believe that that would lead you, or you would be considered as a leader in your field. So the second topic for today would be teleaudiology. Teleaudiology, is it really a hype or real opportunity in Indian context? We're going to specifically examine it in Indian context. So telehealth or teleaudiology focuses on the use of telecommunication technology, for example, video conferencing, home monitoring, etc., to provide direct patient care. So this has at least three different components. This is a simplified diagram, at least three different components. And the first, you have the audiologist, which is at the clinic or home with the necessary equipment, and it has the necessary IT or information technology support. You need a secure line for transmission to the patient's home, and you need an assistant or technician and with secure internet connection. These are three essential components of teleaudiology. So let's examine each of these components from the lens of private practice. Again, we are specifically examining in the lens of private practice. It is highly relevant to provide access to hearing healthcare, particularly to reach the unreached. For example, rural India would be a very good example to reach those people who may need it. Also in urban areas or metropolitan areas in the current environment with lockdown, it's very important to reach or provide essential services, and hearing healthcare falls under essential healthcare services. So we have audiologist at the home, secure line for transmission, and audiology assistant with the patient. We're going to examine each of these steps to see where it's working and where it's not. So this part is, yes, the different kind of services you can provide is hearing assessment, hearing management, and patient counseling. Are audiologists available to do this? Yes, they are available, and they have the equipment with them either in the clinic, they can move it to home. That's not a big problem. Yes, it is available. Is IT support available, or particularly secure encrypted line available? I want to emphasize that the line has to be secure and or encrypted so that your data is not hacked by somebody else. With the current scenario, you can hire a tech guy to hack your data, and that is basically all your patient information, which is basically your leads to primary bread and butter, and that is important. That's why it is important to have a secure line. And if you don't have secure line, it can be easily made. It's not, again, a big challenge. Next comes the third component, where you need audiology assistance, patient, and secure internet. So are technicians available to do this? Yes, there are technicians. Even if they're not available, you can train them. Maybe in a week or 10 days, they will be ready to do the job. And they will be primarily DHLS diploma holders, which can be trained to do this. The answer is yes. Is the patient home environment conducive? That primarily I mean is whether the patient has a noise-free room or quiet room, because most hearing tests or hearing programming is, at the initially at least, it's better done in a quiet environment. It is very important that, and sometimes it may not be possible to have those things available, but It is, but it may be, it really depends on individual situations. In some cases it's available, other cases it may not be. And so it really depends, or maybe. The internet is, if they don't have internet at their home, you can always carry a dongle. Again, remember to have the secure internet to perform the duties. Now, so it looks like it's either yes, can be made, or it really depends, or sometimes it's maybe. So where exactly is the problem in delivering these services through telepractice? So the challenge, let's look at the challenge. Secure transmission, as I explained in the previous slide, it is important that you use data encrypted wireless line, and finding assistants or technicians who will visit the home may be easier. You can find DHLS people to assist you through work. But the main question comes, even if they are not qualified, you can train them. But the main question comes, are they reliable? Are they trustworthy to you? And this really depends on your individual situation. Again, this is examined in terms of private practice. Are they reliable? Are they going to sell your data or to your competitor? Like they go with a 20,000 rupees to fit a hearing aid, and on the way they change their mind and sell a different product or dispense a different hearing aid. Are they trustworthy to you? Will they learn the techniques and telepractice and leave you and go join somebody else? So you have really worked hard to set up, and once they learn and leave your practice, go join your competitor. So these are the practical challenges rather than any scientific challenges. There are no scientific or technical challenges, but these are practical challenges. Will they take your patient data? Will they leave your practice and build for someone else? So these are the questions that has to be examined on individual case by case. And another important thing, because they will have to carry sometimes some of the expensive equipments when they're traveling from one place to another. And what I do not know, whether do you have insurance to cover for potential damage. If they're going for a bike or in somewhere they made an accident and your equipment is damaged, who's going to cover those expenses? Most equipment are expensive. Who's going to cover the repair cost and so on and so forth? That is something to be considered. So all things considered, while telepractice is possible for institutional services or hospital systems, it's very easy to incorporate for a hospital or institutional system. At the present time, for private practitioners in Indian context, the only options available for them is unfortunately counseling or listening training or oral rehab, maybe the only telepractice options. So even though technically or scientifically it is possible, because of practical reasons it may not be feasible. And again, as I said, it may be evaluated on a case by case basis. So do you have any questions on telepractice? So I got one question there, and the question is the most important question: how do you know teleaudiology outcomes or their benefit compared to direct face-to-face services? So there was one study, they looked at 7,000 service data, so that the care delivered by teleaudiology was identified as good or sometimes even better than traditional face-to-face encounters, which is good. But then again, this data comes from institutional services, not from individual private practitioners. So that's something to keep in mind. Alright, so that ends our topic, second topic, which is on telepractice. Next comes computerized auditory training. Auditory training has been there for a long time. Even when I was a student, I used to be posted sometimes in listening training, which I used to really hate because we had to do things manually. And importantly, just like body training, auditory training works. This picture sort of a demonstration of those things. Now let's look at some of the auditory training features. Candidates. Who can be a candidate? Anyone who has a speech and noise or listening problem, whether they're using hearing aid, cochlear implant, simple listening disorders, they are not using a hearing aid, or they are using or children with APD. Anybody can have who has complaint of speech and noise or listening problems. So where do you work? In the case of hearing impaired individuals, you work to maximize the residual hearing, means whatever the hearing remaining hearing, you work on that to maximize its benefits. It may begin with hearing aid or cochlear implant. As soon as you put a hearing aid or cochlear implant, you can start auditory training. Interpret auditory signals, and it helps the patient to interpret auditory signals and maximize speech perception. It can be done at home and the clinic. This home also provides an opportunity for telepractice for auditory training. But supervised auditory training by an audiologist is more beneficial. So you monitor, you give them tasks, what is need to be completed, that is more beneficial than unsupervised auditory training. An ultimate goal of auditory training is to improve communication. To do auditory training, you don't have to do manually. There are several softwares available, commercially available softwares that can be done, used to do it. It's kind of a computerized game. Benefits to the clinic is it allows audiologists to distinguish themselves from the competition. So you can say or claim that you are the one provider in your region that you are providing this auditory training or computerized auditory training. Next, it does have revenue. You don't have to compete all the time for hearing aid sales. So this is also providing an untapped source of revenue. Not many people, to the best of my knowledge, and I spoke to my several friends who practice in the clinic, are using auditory training. So this also provides an untapped resource, untapped source of income. It also provides a means to provide customized hearing health care. You are not treating each hearing impaired individual the same way. You are treating different individuals, customizing the care of the services. So that really brings a lot of confidence within the patient population. With that, so just doing things, just the sake for doing it gives benefit is good, important, but we also need to understand the science or the neuroscience underneath auditory training. If we do not understand the neuroscience behind it, then there is no difference between a technician and an audiologist. So very briefly, I have oversimplified the concept here. What do you know is computer games are playing something that gives you pleasure, increases your pleasure, your happiness. Happiness or pleasure related with computer games increases dopamine in the brain. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter in the brain. And increased dopamine increases the connection between various brain cells, and that leads to neuroplasticity, improves neuroplasticity, and which is directly associated with perceptual learning, or learning how to perceive different sounds. So you see, this is playing games. Games here primarily means auditory training games is directly related to improving perception through various stages, which is scientifically valid. And hearing impaired individuals are more likely to benefit from training if they're having fun. They're having fun in the when they're doing training, instead of just following instructions the way I did when I was a student listening training therapy. So that's a different thing. But with now computerized games is directly related to their pleasure and increases their neurotransmitter release in the brain that leads to plasticity and improves learning, or they learn to perceive sounds. So that's the basic science or neuroscience underlying auditory training. So here are some of the programs, some of the apps that can be used for auditory training. Some apps are expensive, some apps are free. These are some apps are exclusively made for cochlear implantees. Some apps anybody can be used. Some apps are made for, like for example, children with communication disorders. This particular one with any problem, for example APD, LD, SLI, they can also use, because they also have listening in noise deficits. My personal favorite is the top one, Angel Sound. Again, this was developed at the House Institute, so that's my personal favorite. I like that one. That's really an important app, Angel Sound. There are different programs. I'm not pitching for one versus the other. You can choose which one you want to. And just this cartoon depicts the auditory training. In this cartoon, they are thinking, oh, what the person said before auditory training. After auditory training, they understand, oh, the person said hello. So that sort of this cartoon demonstrates in one slide what the benefits of auditory training. Our next topic is hearing loss and dementia. And we'll explore, is there a connection, or what is the connection between these two? Does hearing loss cause cognitive decline or dementia? That's the question we would like to answer here. What is cognitive decline? Cognitive decline represents a change in thinking, memory, or other kind of higher executive functions. For example, speech processing, language abilities, attention, etc. The one that matters to us as audiologists is the processing of speech. And so the myth is hearing loss does not directly cause dementia. It's true, it doesn't directly cause dementia, but you're going to look a little bit carefully. Is there a connection? The reality is hearing loss increases the risk for dementia. If somebody has hearing loss, it does increases the risk, or there increase the forgetfulness in particular. The rate of cognitive decline, the rate at which they forget things decreases following hearing aid use. If they use hearing aids for longer period of time, their tendency to forget things becomes less, or the ability to process speech improves. Managing hearing loss is very important for persons with dementia. If a individual has dementia, you must provide hearing care as soon as possible. It's very important because their cognitive load is already high. You don't want to make it higher, because hearing loss would definitely make very challenging for them to process speech and do other kind of functions. So hearing loss may not directly cause a cognitive decline or dementia, but it does increase the load, and it does put people at more risk for dementia or other kind of cognitive deficits. One simple test to assess auditory working memory is, for example, somebody said 3, 4, 1, 9, 0, 2, 5. There are two kinds of tasks. One is forward digit span and there is backward digit span. In the forward digit span, the person or the patient is expected to repeat it in the same order. For example, 3, 4, 1. They are in the same order. 3, 4, 1. That is called forward digit span task. Normal hearing adults are able to repeat up to 7 digits, around 7 digits if spoken in the forward digit order. In the backward digit task, their task is to repeat the same digits but in the reverse order. You can see this, the person spoke 3, 4, 1, but the listener's task is to repeat it 1, 4, 3 in the reverse order. Typically this is less compared to the forward digit span, and that backward digit span normal scores are about 5 digits. It's a very simple task you can do that gives an idea about your patient's ability, or you can also monitor over time how much they could their auditory working memory works. And this is, more importantly, this is an auditory domain. There's no visual task, there's an auditory domain. This is very important. You can demonstrate objectively the benefits, how it is, whether a hearing aid is helping someone or not, or to what extent it's helping. Next, there are other web tests, the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. I'm not going to the details of that. If you're interested, you can explore this, and there's a 10 minutes task. Mini-cog test, which is 3 minutes task. If you're interested, you could explore that. These are some of the other web-based tasks available. So again, to demonstrate hearing loss and dementia, one picture, it's like this person remembers, I remember this face looking in the mirror, but I have forgotten the name. And this happens in, this is in the visual domain, but it does happen in the auditory domain. So that's, so you may be calling this person's name, that person, may not understand, may not hear, may not be able to respond. So this is really difficult. You're adding forgetting problem as well as listening problem. So this is one sort of a cartoon to demonstrate the problems experienced by people with dementia, and in the visual domain, in the auditory domain, it will be dementia and hearing loss. Next comes one of the hottest topics of the decade is hidden hearing loss and cochlear synaptopathy. I'm going to spend some time and explain very briefly on this, because some of the steps are also emerging. Now, this is an inner hair cell. All of you may know the blue one is the inner hair cell, and this green line is the connection, which is the auditory nerve fiber terminal. These are the two auditory nerve fibers. And what happens, and again here it's showing that interconnection, that this intersection, and again here it's intersection. And what happens in cochlear synaptopathy, you have damaged cochlear ribbon type synapses, that transmit information from inner hair cells to type 1 auditory fiber. So this is the problem, is at this anatomically here at the intersection, at the synapse, ribbon type synapse in particular, they transmit information from inner hair cells to the 8 nerve type 1 fibers. So that's the if there's a problem like this, when you have a transmission problem, particularly in the ribbon synapses, transmission from IHCs to type 1 auditory fibers, that is called cochlear synaptopathy. The clinical manifestation so far in animals, it is very clear: normal audioacoustic emissions, abnormal auditory brainstem response, particularly wave 1. Remember, the cause for this is moderate noise exposure. We all know that high or loud noise exposure causes hearing loss. We know that, and that cause damages outer hair cells. But these cochlear synaptopathy, the outer hair cells are supposedly normal. That's why you have normal audioacoustic emissions. The type 1 fibers are affected at the transmission line from IHCs to the 8 nerve. That's why you have ABR wave 1 is impaired. That is impaired in animals. And it could also, with the moderate noise exposure, that does not impact our outer hair cells but does impair these terminals. And it could also occur because of aging. In humans, it is very hard to diagnose because ABR wave 1 is not very reliable in humans. That's one of the main reasons, and sometimes it may not manifest. We don't know that yet. But in terms of functionally, what are the functional consequences? Speech in noise problems. They have speech in noise problem. Their audiogram is completely normal. Some people call this hidden hearing loss if it is due to noise exposure. But remember, the noise exposure is mild to moderate. That does not affect outer hair cells. So you do not see a problem with audioacoustic emissions, at least so far. And it does affect speech in noise problems, particularly at suprathreshold, at conversational levels or high noise backgrounds, despite normal audiograms. So in other words, some people consider this as an extreme form of synaptopathy, could cause auditory neuropathy. But in some auditory neuropathy cases, you have your audiogram may not be normal. Some of the there's some overlap, but that really has to be not a clear overlap. In extreme some cases there may be auditory neuropathy. How to diagnose this and what to do for management, it is not known at this point, so the work is in progress. So you cannot do anything about in terms of device or diagnose, but what you can do, if you are paying attention to this webinar so far, because you have a difficulty in speech and noise problems, you can always use computerized auditory trainings. And this graph this cartoon or graph demonstrate this, that in this first inner hair cell synapses are intact, synapses between inner hair cells and the auditory nerve fibers are intact. In the second noise exposure, some of the synapses are lost here and the nerve fiber starts to degenerate. This is where you see the cochlear synaptopathy. Okay, that was a demonstration in just one slide of what you learned about what's happening. One important thing to remember, they have difficulty speech in noise at suprathreshold hearing levels. Okay, again, some people call it hidden hearing loss. It could be obscure auditory dysfunction, some form of extreme neuropathy, but for now I personally like to call this cochlear synaptopathy to be precise. Next, so we have been talking about speech in noise. So it is very important to look at speech in noise tests in the Indian context. The value of speech in noise test cannot be overestimated. We all know why speech in noise tests are important, and I'm not going to spend any time of it, but just previously you learned speech in noise, it's impaired in hidden hearing loss or cochlear synaptopathy. And this is a language map of India. This is not a representative, not a full language map. And so let me talk a quick moment. I'm from here, Odisha. You can see this blue here, Turkish blue, and then this is the Hindi language. I speak this language, I speak Hindi. Then I moved to West Bengal for my undergraduate. I did speak and understand Bengali. Then I moved to Karnataka. This again another kind of blue here, who they speak a different language. So it's very hard to test all of India, and with nowadays different parts of people live in different parts of India. Even people from different states they always leave their home. Sometimes they leave their home state and live in another state. There is no way to express the problem. We all know the problem, of a speech in noise test. At the same time, we all know the value of a speech in noise test. The problem is no one language can be used due to the vast diversity of India, linguistic diversity. So what is the solution? And I have come up with an innovative solution for this problem, particularly in the Indian context. Numbers in English. So most people from child to elderly, village, across different spheres of India understand numbers in English. For example, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 through 9. They don't need to know more number. They just need to know 1 through 9 and 0. That's all they need to know. These 10 digits they need to know. So if they know the numbers, why are we not using the numbers in English to use it? And remember why I stress if they know these numbers, because they use a cell phone. Most people have cell phone or no mobile phone. A mobile phone has a keypad in English in most cases, and they can use it. So the solution I propose is digit triplet test. So we have a speech in noise test primarily based on digits, and again this software that is developed in my laboratory, and we're going to use this software. I'll give a demo, but it may change a moment, take some time for me to demonstrate, change into a different screen. Please stay here, please bear with me. And this sort of numbers, you speak a number, they click on this is an automated test, and you are not saying anything. It's just like automated test. So let me try to give me a moment. I'll try to give this a demo. And I feel that would solve that would give the much needed test in India. Okay, I'm going to give a demo here.
One, nine, three. One, five, seven. Nine, eight, five. 8, 1, 9. 3, 1, 9.
So here's the score in this case. Okay, I'll just turn the screen and come back to explain you. Alright, so how this works is it plays a sound, and if the person gives a correct response, the noise level increases. If the person gives a wrong response, the noise level decreases. The listener's task is to just click on this number just like a telephone keypad, and you can turn on this feedback. If you did that, the person can see whether the previous response was correct or incorrect. So this is a test, and I'm going to be making it available very soon, and if you're interested, please do contact me. In the very first slide I displayed my email, and or you can contact Siva Prasad, who is coordinating this event, and he would also be able to guide you this. This is very important, and you can demonstrate the value of speech in noise to your client very easily, very quickly. It's a quick test as well. So it is quick, it is game like. We are working on to incorporate some games. It is computerized, so no room for error. Whoever has a mobile phone can use this test, as they know the numbers in English. That's the fundamental assumption, and they don't need to know a lot of numbers. They just need to know 0, 1 through 9. It can be used for hearing impaired individuals across the human lifespan, from as young as 5 years onwards, because this is around when they learn numbers in the school, and including children with cochlear implants. And you can easily demonstrate benefit to the patient, their family members, and direct impact on your customer and business. So that's that is very important, that this speech and noise test is helpful. Next topic for today is smartphone app based hearing tests. So again, this is in lines of tests that can be done. You don't have to travel to the clinic. For example, one such test would be digit triplet test. That is one solution. And in 2012, the World Health Organization estimated that disabling hearing impairment affects around 360 million people, or 5.3% of the world population, the vast majority of whom live in low and middle income countries. As a result, they do not have access to hearing healthcare services, or the audiologists, they don't even have audiologist training programs. They may not even have the audiologist may not have all the set of devices. So early identification through screening is important to alleviate the negative effects of untreated hearing hearing impairment, and it also removes substantial barriers exist in screening for hearing impairment in low middle income countries, such as expensive specialist equipment to measure hearing. So one of the ways can be done, one example is this digit triplet test, the test I just demonstrated. But coming to that, our goal that we could make this work with a lot of app based tests. And I'm going to review a few of here the app based tests here. One is here. This is the iPhone based test. The cost is free, and this is the range of frequencies. The maximum output is 90 decibels. Self testing. The person can use self test mode. Next is Shoebox. It's iPhone based again. The different versions. The cost ranges from $2,000 to $4,100, which is still cheaper if you compare to an advanced audiometer. It sort of gives more a range of auditory frequencies. The range, even highest output, is 90 to 115. That is also good. It can be administered by self or an audiologist. Oddcal, again iPhone based, costs $2, approximately 160 rupees. And these are the frequencies. Maximum output is 75, and that means you may not be able to diagnose someone who has profound hearing loss and test her. It is AUD, done by auditory testing. You cannot. So you can say you cannot differentiate between severe versus profound in this particular case. Here screen, Android based app, 600, and this is the very limited $600, which is too expensive, and just for the limited set, and it can be done by audiologists. It's a screening device. Ear trumpet, it's mostly allows you to cost is $4, and it's Android. It could be Android app, iPhone both, and it can be like maximum 90 to 100 decibels. Self tester. These are some of the apps you could download yourself, at least the free ones or the low cost ones, to find out whether it matters to whether you can use it or not. That's again some of these are the validated apps. That means this has been already done on normal hearing adults and hearing impaired adults. Now comes the last but not the least topics. Personally, I feel in the entire last decade, this is one topic, extended high frequencies, that can be applied in the clinic right away. There are many research developments, but the clinicians may not be able to use it in the clinic, but this particular one, extended high frequencies, you should be able to apply. Let's look at some of the things with this. So normally, what range of frequencies humans can hear? We all know that they can hear from 20 to 20,000. If humans can hear up to 20,000, then why do we measure only up to 8,000 in the clinic? Let's look at some of the myths. They are myths, they are not the regions, they are myths. And I'm going to bust one after another myth today. So addressing some of the clinical concern, easiest research, this is, as I said, this is one of the easiest research development to implement in the clinic. Again, coming back to your evidence-based practice as the very first topic I covered today. Extended high frequencies mean it's greater than 8,000 hertz and up to 20,000 hertz, whatever frequencies you can test. The first myth is there is no or little acoustic energy above 8,000 hertz. Even if there's energy, it's not useful in hearing. That's not true. It really depends on what you speak. For example, this is a spectrogram. You can see energy in this after 8,000, between 8 and approximately 15,000. This area, I'm going to just highlight with my mouse, this area, top between this 8 to 14,000 or 15,000. It really depends. For example, if you said, oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? That has high frequency or extended high frequency energy. Myth 2. There is little acoustic energy above 8,000 hertz and is not useful in hearing. Humans actually can use extended high frequencies to distinguish speech sounds, particularly when the low frequency information is degraded. In certain situations, low frequency information may be degraded, and there extended high frequencies are helpful, and they can be used for consonant categorization. For example, place, bilabial, example ba, voicing. They can also be used to differentiate manner. For example, fricative, which is a high frequency sound. So they are also useful for extended perception, or in terms of auditory perception. Third myth: extended high frequency thresholds are not reliable. It is actually reliable in young adults. For example, HDA with SDA 200 headphone in adults, on 4 occasions 98% of the thresholds were within plus minus 10 decibels. In practice, we use 5 dB criteria for standard frequencies from 250 to 8,000, but here you have to change the criteria a little bit. It's about 10 plus minus 10 dB, and I know almost 100% of the time the thresholds are reliable if you went a criteria for plus minus 10 decibels. Next myth: audiometers and earphones can work up to 8,000 hertz. That's not true either. There are several extended high frequency headphones are available. For example, Sennheiser SDA 200, Radio Ear DD 450, Sennheiser SD 280 Pro earphones. You talk to your device or audiometer provider, marketing person, they may be able to help you with the particular device. But there are commercially available devices. Next myth: there is no evidence that extended high frequency is useful in children or useful in the clinic. In fact, there are several studies that indicate otitis media, even when the disease has resolved in children, is associated with hearing loss in the extended high frequency region, which indicates residual effect. So you could use in children and in the clinic to demonstrate which has completely recovered otitis media or whether some of the residual effects of otitis media. This will extend clinical testing time. That is another concern, because you are doing so many tests. For example, we know that there are false airborne gaps exist on as high as 20 decibels at 4,000 hertz, even normal hearing and sensorineural hearing loss. And this we know that. So what's the point of using this bone conduction at this particular frequency, because we know it's most often false in these cases. For example, also if you are using SRT, I don't know whether you're using SRT in a person who doesn't have a complaint in hearing noise, practically serves no purpose in the clinic. I'm not talking about institutions, I'm talking about private practice clinic. Practically SRT using spondies in quiet serves absolutely no purpose in the private practice. So you can eliminate that as well and include something else. Extended high frequency testing may be included by eliminating these in testing in some cases. Again, these are two examples. You have to make a clinical decision based on your individual cases. It's not, I will not be able to tell thousands of cases how to behave in a particular condition or how to decide on a particular condition, but you are free to make those clinical decisions in a private practice. What is in the best interest of your patient? Next, and EHF does help in sound localization. For example, in this is called polar angle localization. This is the nose and this is the forehead. If you're trying to locate anything in this area, that is extended high frequencies. Sometimes if you're driving a bike and someone is honking from the front in a truck, that is you're able to know because of the polar angle localization. EHF is important for accurate polar angle localization of speech as well. And for example, if you're watching a movie, whether it's hearing impaired individuals can also go watch a movie in a movie theater. If they want to enjoy the movie theater or a home theater system, they need to use extended high frequencies for the polar angle from the polar angle. Now, again, EHF or extended high frequency is associated or can be used to diagnose or to get information about marked hidden hearing loss. Speech in noise deficits, hidden hearing loss, again speech in noise deficits despite standard normal audiogram. This is also known as obscure auditory dysfunction. And this graph, there are two groups of individuals, those who are low risk, those who are high risk. Low risk is the black curve and high risk is the red curve. In the clinic, what you do is standard audiometry, this gray area. This gray area from 0.2 to 8000 Hz, you see the black and the red are overlapping with each other, which means they have similar thresholds. But if you look in the extended high region, 8000 to 20,000, there are significant differences. High and low risk groups are separated. So they have similar audiograms in the standard frequency region, but the audiograms differ considerably, particularly for the high risk, it worsens in the extended high frequency region. So this has direct impact on fast speech or speech understanding reverberation, despite they have similar performance in quiet. So again, this is one of the tools that you could use to mark hidden hearing loss, particularly when the patient complains of a speech in noise and you find their hearing loss is normal audiogram in the standard audiometry. EHF management, it is important at the end of the day. You want to manage some of the things, even if you're hearing loss. What to do with the information? One of the information is that early indicator or marker of subclinical hearing loss. I'm going to come to this point a little bit later in the next slide. But here, some devices are available. For example, ear lens is one of the devices that provide extended bandwidth hearing device if somebody wants to use that in the clinic. So the devices are available. And again, let's come to this point, early indicator or marker for subclinical hearing loss. So let's say these are the different people, and this black color, this blue color, this green, orange and yellow. If you could predict that they have hearing loss or they will have hearing loss with some certainty, sometimes it may be predictable to when as well. So you are like an astrologer, audiologist plus astrology. If you see somebody with EHF, you predict that after some time you're going to be hearing loss. So what basically means, if they have hearing loss in the extended high frequency region now, it is slowly going to come to their, after a year or 2 or 3 years, slow with time, it is going to definitely affect their standard frequencies. So you are predicting someone that, okay, these people, these colorful people here will have hearing loss from a group of people. So that patient is going to come back to you. It will come back to you if you can predict something. It is like audiologists as well as astrology. You can, EHF or extended high frequencies help you predict the future and allows you to make those kind of predictions. Alright, thank you everybody. If you're still awake, I really appreciate your time, and if you have any questions, please type in. I'll try to answer as many as I can. Thank you again for your time. Again, the goal of the presentation was to review topics from the last decade, particularly the topics that has direct and significant clinical implications that can be done in the clinic from a private practice standpoint. Thank you everybody. Have a great day.